For centuries, thinkers have been asking a huge question. What's the real root of all the bad stuff we do? And they argue it's not greed, it's not even anger. It's something way more fundamental, something they call the queen of all vices. So let me ask you, if you had to pick the single most dangerous human flaw, the one that kind of opens the door for all the others, what would it be? Greed? Maybe jealousy? Well, according to a whole lot of wisdom passed down through the ages, the real troublemaker is a lot sneakier and way more powerful. And this line from the book of Sirach just nails it. Pride is the beginning of all sin. Now, that's not just being dramatic. It's more like a diagnosis. The idea is, before any other vice can really get its hooks into you, pride has to come in first and make an opening. It's like the first crack in the foundation. Okay, so to really understand why pride is seen as such a big deal, our source material gives us this really powerful image, pride as the queen of all vices. Think about that. Not just one of the team, but the one in charge calling all the shots. We tend to think of pride as just being arrogant or bragging a bit, but in this context, it's way, way deeper. It's defined as an excessive love of your own excellence. It's that mindset where you start to believe you're so great, you don't have to answer to anyone, not even a higher power. It's basically you declaring yourself the center of the universe. And this is a super important point. We have to separate this toxic pride from just having healthy self-worth. Healthy self-worth is based on being honest about your gifts and knowing they came from somewhere. Vicious pride, on the other hand, it's all about wanting to be seen as more than you are, taking all the credit for yourself, and refusing to accept any authority outside of your own ego. And that's exactly why it's taken so seriously. We're not just talking about a personality quirk here. In this framework, pride is labeled a mortal sin. The source even calls it one of the blackest of sins, because you're not just breaking a rule, you're basically spitting in the face of the one who made the rules. It's an act of contempt. So let's keep going. If pride is the queen, it's also something else. Our next section introduces another powerful metaphor. It's the poisonous root that all the other problems grow from. So where does this root even come from? Well, it starts with what's called self-exaltation, basically putting yourself and your own desires first above everything else. Then it's fed by a warped sense of who you are, always wanting to seem better or smarter than you actually are. And it really takes hold when you start looking at your talents not as gifts, but as proof that you're just naturally superior to everyone else. And what grows from a poisonous root? You guessed it, poisonous fruit, which brings us to what the sources call the 7 deadly offspring of pride. The idea here is really fascinating. It's that once pride takes over your heart, it doesn't just hang out. It actively opens the gates and surrenders your heart to its top lieutenants, the 7 principal sins, or what we often call the capital vices. Pride is the general, and these are its elite soldiers. And here they are. You've definitely heard of the 7 deadly sins, but what's so wild is seeing how they are all direct results of pride. It just makes sense, right? If you truly believe you're the most important thing in the world, of course you'll have an excessive desire for admiration, that's vainglory. Of course you'll feel sad when someone else gets something good, that's envy. Of course you'll have explosive anger when you don't get what you think you deserve. See? They all flow from that one original lie. Okay, so that's a lot of bad news. If pride is a disease, is there a cure? Well, the sources are crystal clear on this. The direct, powerful antidote to pride is humility. The real fight here is a battle between 2 completely different mindsets. The pride mindset just assumes it's got everything handled, it hides its flaws, and it desperately wants to be seen as better than everyone else. Humility, on the other hand, admits it needs help, is honest about its mistakes, and actually tries to serve other people. It's not about thinking less of yourself. It's just about thinking about yourself a little less. So how do you actually get there? Well, the sources give us a pretty practical 4-step guide. It starts with honest self-knowledge. No more making excuses. Then comes obedience, not as just blindly following orders, but recognizing you're part of something bigger than yourself. Step 3 is the real curveball. Embrace your weakness. Actually admit you don't have all the answers. And finally, you practice gratitude, seeing every good thing you have as a gift, which leaves absolutely no room for arrogance. And this quote from the first letter of Peter just perfectly sums up what's at stake. It's a stark choice. On one path, you face opposition. On the other, you receive grace. In this view, humility isn't weakness at all. It's actually the key that unlocks all the help you could ever need.
All right, so this is all really interesting history and theology, but let's get real. Why does any of this matter to us right now in the 21st century? Let's bring it all home.
The consequences are, well, everywhere you look. Pride doesn't just stay in your head. It messes with your judgment. It literally clouds your ability to see the truth. And it causes so much social chaos. Just think about all the arguments online, the political division. So much of it is fueled by people just refusing to admit they might be wrong. It's at the heart of so many of our problems, big and small. And this scales up to society as a whole. The source makes a pretty bold argument here that when we build our systems, our schools, our governments, our social programs, and we pretend this human tendency toward pride doesn't exist, we are setting ourselves up for failure. We end up making huge mistakes because our plans aren't based on reality. So we'll end with this one final thought. If pride is really about choosing your own small, isolated self over the much greater potential that comes from being connected and humble, what choice will you make today? Thanks for digging into this with us.